Andrew Barton Patterson was born near Orange, New South Wales. He was the eldest son of Andrew Bogle Patterson, a Scottish immigrant from Lancashire, and Australian-born Rose Isabella Barton, related to the future first Prime Minister of Australia, Edmund Barton. Patterson's family lived on the isolated station near Yeovil, New South Wales, until he was 5, when his father lost his wool clip in a flood and was forced to sell up. When Patterson's uncle, John Patterson, died, his family took over John Patterson's farm in Illawong, near Yass, close to the main route between Melbourne and Sydney. Bullock teams, Cobb and Co coaches and drovers were familiar sights to him. He also saw horsemen from the Murrumbidgee River and Snowy Mountains country take part in picnic races and polo matches, which led him to the fondness of horses and inspired his writings. So Patterson's early education came from a governess, but when he was able to ride a pony, he was taught at the Bush School at Binalong. In 1874, Patterson was sent to Sydney Grammar School, performing well both as a student and a sportsman. During this time, he lived in a cottage called Rock End in the suburb of Gladesville. He left the prestigious school at 16 after failing an examination for a scholarship to the University of Sydney. So Patterson became a law clerk with a Sydney-based firm headed by Herbert Salway and was admitted as a solicitor in 1886. In the years he practiced as a solicitor, he also started writing. From 1886 he began submitting and having poetry published in the Bulletin, a literary journal with a nationalist focus. His earliest work was a poem criticising the British war in the Sudan, which also had Australian participation. Over the next decade, the influential journal provided an important platform for Patterson's work, which appeared under the pseudonym The Banjo, the name of his favourite horse. As one of the most popular writers in the 1890s, he formed friendships with other significant writers in Australian literature, such as E.J. Brady, Harry Breaker Morant, Will H. Ogilvie, and Henry Lawson in particular. So Patterson became engaged in a friendly rivalry of verse with Lawson about the allure of bush life. He wrote many ballads and poems around Australian life, focusing particularly on the rural and outback areas, including the district around Binalong, New South Wales, where he spent much of his childhood. Patterson's more notable poems include Clancy of the Overflow, The Man from Snowy River, and Waltzing Matilda, regarded widely as Australia's unofficial national anthem. So on the 8th of April 1903, he married Alice Emily Walker of Tenterfield Station in St Stephen's Presbyterian Church in Tenterfield, New South Wales. Their first home was in Queen Street, Woollahra. The Pattersons had 2 children, Grace, born in 1904, and Hugh, born in 1906. Patterson had previously engaged to Sarah Riley for 8 years, but this was abruptly called off in 1895 following a visit to her at Dagworth Station in Queensland, where she was visiting the McPherson family. It was here that Patterson met his fiancée's best friend from school days, Christina McPherson, who composed the music for which he then wrote the lyrics of the famous Waltzing Matilda. However, following this collaboration, Patterson was suddenly asked to leave the property, leading historians to conclude that he was a womanizer and had engaged in a scandalous romantic liaison with McPherson. The publication of The Man from Snowy River and 5 other ballads in the Bulletin made the banjo a household name. In 1895, Angus and Robertson published these poems as a collection of Australian verse. The book sold 5,000 copies in the first 4 months of publication. So The Man from Snowy River became a worldwide movie, and it starred Tom Burlinson and Kirk Douglas. And it focused on, after the death of his father, proud young Jim Craig, who was Tom Burlinson, set out to become his own man. Taking a job with horse rancher Harrison, who was Kirk Douglas, Craig is treated poorly by the more experienced cowboys, but wins the heart of rancher's daughter, Jessica, with Sigrid Thornton acted that part, when he helps her break a high-strung colt and later becomes her life. When he's unfairly blamed for the loss of an expensive horse, Craig fights to restore his honour and prove that he's worthy of Jessica's hand.
We may bid the mob good day. No man can hold them down the other side. When they reached the mountain summit, even Clancy took a pull. It might well make the boldest hold their breath. The wild hop scrub grew thickly, and the hidden ground was full of wombat holes. And any slip was death. But the Man from Snowy River let the pony have his head. And he swung his stock whip round and gave a cheer, and he raced him down the mountain like a torrent down its bed, while the others stood and watched in very fear. He sent the flintstones flying, but the pony kept his feet. He cleared the fallen timber in his stride, and the Man from Snowy River never shifted in his seat. It was grand to see that mountain horseman ride. Through the stringy barks and saplings on the rough and broken ground, down the hillside at a racing pace he went, and he never drew bridle till he landed, safe and sound, at the bottom of that terrible descent. He was right among the horses as they climbed the further hill, and the watchers on the mountain, standing mute, saw him ply the stock whip fiercely. He was right among them still as he raced across a clearing in pursuit. Then they lost him for a moment, where two mountain gullies met in the ranges, but a final glimpse reveals, on a dim and distant hillside, the wild horses racing yet with the Man from Snowy River at their heels. And he ran them, single-handed, till their sides were white with foam. He followed like a bloodhound on their track, till they halted, cowed and beaten. Then he turned their heads for home, and alone and unassisted brought them back. But his hardy mountain pony, he could scarcely raise a trot. He was blood from hip to shoulder from the spur. But his pluck was still undaunted, and his courage fiery hot. For never yet was mountain horse a cur. And down by Kosciuszko, where the pine-clad ridges raise their torn and rugged battlements on high, where the air is clear as crystal, and the white stars fairly blaze at midnight in the cold and frosty sky, and where, around the overflow, the reed beds sweep and sway to the breezes and the rolling plains are wide, the Man from Snowy River is a household word today.
There was a lot of controversy about who the Man from Snowy River was, so I'll talk about that for a little bit. So there is a possibility that another exceptional and fearless rider, Charlie McKeany, might have been the inspiration for the poem. In 1885, when McKeany was only 17 years of age, he performed a dangerous riding feat in the Snowy River region. Historian Neville Locker supports his theory, adding that a prior poem had been written about McKeany by bush poet Barcroft Boke, and that the story had been recounted by Mrs. Hassel to a crowd that included Patterson. Locker also offers as evidence a letter by McKeaney's sister that discusses the ride and Patterson's hearing of the ride. McKeaney was killed in a riding accident near Breadbow in 1895 and is buried in the old Adminaby Cemetery on the shores of Lake Yucambine, as you can see here. So Banjo Patterson was a very famous Australian poet, and the song Waltzing Matilda has been sung by many famous country singers and is recognised as probably the closest to the national Australian anthem besides the original one. And he's left quite a legacy. He appears on the $10 note along with an illustration inspired by the man from Snowy River. In 1981 he was honoured on a postage stamp issued by Australia Post. The A.B. Patterson College at Arundel on the Gold Coast, Australia is named after Patterson. The A.B. Banjo Patterson Library at Sydney Grammar School is also named after Patterson. The Festival of Arts in Orange, New South Wales, where he was born, presents a biennial Banjo Patterson Award for Poetry and One-Act Plays. And there's also an annual National Book Council Banjo Award. Orange has the annual Banjo Patterson Poetry Festival. A privately owned 47-year-old wooden diesel vessel from Carrum, Victoria was christened with the name Banjo Patterson and coincidentally runs up and down the Patterson River. And in 1983 a rendition of Waltzing Matilda by country and western singer Slim Dusty was the first song broadcast by astronauts to Earth.
Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. He sang as he shoved that jump buck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
And lastly, Illalong Creek, the Banjo Patterson Bridge, is named after Banjo Patterson himself. So Banjo Patterson died of a heart attack in Sydney on the 5th of February 1941. He was aged 76. So the poet is survived by Mrs. Patterson, his wife and 2 children by the marriage are Mrs. Kay Harvey, whose husband is a naval officer, and Mr. Hugh Patterson of Queensland, who is a member of the Australian Imperial Force. He rests in peace in the Northern Suburbs crematorium.
Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. He sang as he shoved that jump buck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up rode the squatter, mounted on his thoroughbred. Up rode the troopers, 1, 2, 3. With the jolly jumbuck that you got in your tucker bag, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. With the jolly jumbuck that you got in your tucker bag, you'll come a waltzing, you scoundrel, with me. Up jumped the swagman, sprang into the billabong. You'll never take me alive, said he, and his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. His ghost may be heard as you pass by that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with everybody. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. As you pass by that billabong, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.